All your life you've been told that if you want love, you must prove yourself. You must chase, impress, and constantly show a woman that she is the center of your world. Movies paint the picture of the tireless man who wins the girl by persistence. Songs glorify the idea of never giving up, never walking away. Friends and family even reinforce it. If you really care, you'll fight for her. But what if the opposite is true? What if the very act of chasing is the reason she loses respect for you? Here's a reality most men never learn until it's too late. The more you bend over backward for someone who takes you for granted, the less valuable you appear in their eyes. You may think you're showing love, but to her, it often signals weakness. You may believe you're proving commitment, but in her psychology, it communicates neediness. And while women may enjoy the attention in the short term, they instinctively respect what is scarce, not what is abundant. The man who gives himself away too easily becomes invisible, while the man who knows his worth and refuses to chase becomes unforgettable. That's the paradox at the heart of relationships today. In a world drowning in validation where social media provides endless likes, comments, and messages, your effort is just another drop in the ocean. Every day, she receives attention from men who are willing to do anything for a smile or a reply. But here's the secret no one tells you. None of that attention truly matters. It's shallow, it's fleeting. What actually impacts her is the man who doesn't beg for her time, who doesn't cling to her approval, who doesn't treat her presence as the oxygen he needs to survive. That man stands out because he is different. He values himself first. When you stop chasing, something powerful happens. The dynamic flips. She notices your absence, and that absence carries weight. Suddenly, the balance of power shifts, and she begins to question what she once took for granted. But this isn't just about how she feels, it's about how you grow. The act of pulling back forces you to reclaim your identity, to redirect your energy into your own life, your own goals, your own purpose. Instead of constantly asking what she wants, you ask what you want. Instead of living in fear of losing her, you begin to live in the strength of not losing yourself. This is not about manipulation. It's not about playing games or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about remembering that respect, whether from a woman or from anyone, begins with self-respect. And a man who cannot walk away can never truly command respect. When you stop chasing, you show her something she rarely sees: a man with boundaries, with discipline, with a life bigger than any single relationship. The Stoics understood this centuries ago. Marcus Aurelius wrote that you have power over your mind, not outside events. Epictetus reminded his students that freedom comes when you no longer depend on what lies outside your control. In modern relationships, this wisdom is more relevant than ever. You cannot control how she feels, how she reacts, or whether she stays. But you can control your composure, your focus, and your willingness to walk away when your dignity is on the line. That's what it means to be truly free. So what really happens when she realizes you're no longer interested? What goes on in her mind? And what changes in your own? That's what we're going to explore together. We'll break down the shift in dynamics, the emotional reactions she goes through, the importance of staying composed, the challenge of handling the shift once it's in your favor, and finally, the power of focused detachment, the ultimate weapon that allows you to lead not just in relationships, but in life. By the end of this journey, you will see why chasing never works, why absence can speak louder than presence, and why the man who values himself first always commands the deepest respect. This isn't about becoming bitter or cold. It's about stepping into your true strength, the kind of strength that women recognize, men admire, and you yourself will come to rely on. Welcome to StoicCraft, where timeless philosophy meets the realities of modern relationships. If you've ever felt drained from giving too much, ignored despite your best efforts, or disrespected for always being available, this message is for you. It's time to stop living as the man who chases and start living as the man who leads. Because when she realizes you're no longer interested, everything changes not just for her, but for you. The very moment you stop chasing, the entire dynamic of the relationship begins to change. For a long time, you may have been the one constantly investing texting first, planning the dates, making the calls, checking in, adjusting your schedule to fit hers, trying to anticipate her needs before she even voiced them. You thought this was the right thing to do. Society, media, even well-meaning friends taught you that being the nice guy meant giving endlessly, sacrificing without complaint, and proving your worth through relentless effort. But what no one told you is that effort without boundaries does not create love. It creates imbalance. When you are always the one moving forward, she learns to stand still. When you constantly reach out, she grows comfortable not reaching back. Your effort becomes the air she breathes, always there, unnoticed, unappreciated, until the moment it disappears. That disappearance is where the shift begins. Suddenly, the roles reverse. Instead of you worrying about her interest, she begins to wonder about yours. Instead of you proving yourself, she starts to question what she's done to lose your attention. This is not manipulation, it is the natural correction of a dynamic that has been tilted too far or too low. And human psychology is built around balance. When one person gives endlessly and the other simply receives, respect cannot survive. Women, like men, are wired to respect what is scarce, what feels earned, what carries weight. The truth is brutal but liberating. The more you hand yourself over without resistance, the less she values you. The more predictable you become, the less exciting you are. The more available you are, the less necessary it feels to in your presence. In today's world, this truth is amplified by the environment we live in. Social media ensures that women receive constant validation. A single selfie can attract dozens or even hundreds of likes, comments, and messages. Dating apps put endless options at their fingertips. Their inboxes are filled with men competing for their attention. Against that backdrop, your effort, no matter how genuine, can easily blend into the noise. But when you step back, when you stop contributing to that flood of validation, your absence speaks louder than any message you could have sent. You stand up not by doing more, but by doing less with purpose. The shift in dynamics is not only about how she perceives you, it is also about how you perceive yourself. For years, you may have lived with the belief that your value comes from how much you do for others, particularly for women. You measured yourself by how well you could keep her happy, how quickly you could respond, how available you could be. But when you stop chasing, you begin to see the truth. Your worth was never supposed to be defined by her approval. It is defined by your ability to respect yourself, to set boundaries, to say no when your dignity is at stake. That realization is life-changing, because it shifts the balance of power back to where it belongs with you. Consider this. When you constantly chase, you communicate without saying a word that her time is more valuable than yours. You tell her that your life revolves around her schedule, her moods, her attention. But when you pull back, when you focus on yourself, when you show that your world continues to spin whether she is present or not, the entire perception changes. She begins to realize that you are not just another man orbiting around her. You are a man with his own gravity. The Stoics understood the importance of this gravity. Seneca wrote that a man who spends his life trying to please everyone wastes the only resource he cannot renew: time. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that reputation and status mean nothing compared to integrity and purpose. In the same way, your shift from chasing to leading is not about winning her approval. It is about aligning your life with values that make you strong regardless of who stands beside you. Many men fear this shift because they believe pulling back will push her away. And sometimes it does. But that is the truth you must face. If her interest survives only when you exhaust yourself to maintain it, then it was never real to begin with. What you gain by stepping back is clarity. You see whether she values you for who you are or only for what you give. And if she walks away when you stop chasing, you have not lost anything. You have discovered the truth earlier than most. The beauty of this shift is that it empowers both sides. For her, it forces reflection. She begins to question what she has contributed, what she has overlooked, what she risks losing. For you, it forces growth. You stop living for external validation and start living from internal strength. You reclaim the energy you once poured out recklessly and reinvest it into your own life, your health, your career, your passions, your friendships, your future. And as you grow, you become more magnetic, not because you are trying to impress her, but because confidence and independence are attractive qualities in their own right. So understand this. The shift in dynamics is not about playing games. It is about finally correcting a pattern that never should have existed in the first place. It is about refusing to sacrifice your dignity for approval. It is about remembering that the man who can walk away is the man who commands respect. And once you embrace this shift, you will never see relationships the same way again. You will no longer measure your worth by how much you give, but by how well you guard your self-respect. And that, more than anything else, changes everything. When you finally stop chasing, the silence you create does not go unnoticed. At first, she may act indifferent. She might scroll through her feed, go out with friends, and even convince herself she doesn't care. But underneath, something shifts. What was once constant, your calls, your texts, your availability suddenly disappears, and that absence begins to echo louder than all the noise that surrounds her. Women, like men, are creatures of habit, and when a habit is broken, the mind scrambles to fill in the blanks. Your absence becomes a mystery, and that mystery provokes an emotional storm. The first stage is confusion. She is used to your predictable patterns, to the certainty of knowing you would always reach out first, check in, or make plans. When that predictability disappears, she starts asking questions, not necessarily out loud, but inside her mind. Did something happen? Did I do something wrong? Is he upset with me? This confusion is unsettling because it breaks her sense of control. The script she has relied on no longer plays the way she expected, and suddenly she is no longer sure where she stands. Confusion soon evolves into curiosity. She begins to replay your last interactions, looking for clues. She rereads your old messages, searching for signs she missed. She wonders if you are busy, if you've met someone else, or if you have simply lost interest. Curiosity drives her to check your social media more often, to ask subtle questions, or to pay closer attention when your name comes up in conversation. You may not see this curiosity directly, but rest assured, it is there. When you disrupt the pattern, she feels compelled to solve the puzzle. As the days pass, curiosity deepens into insecurity. Now, she is not just wondering why you have pulled back. She is wondering what that says about her. Did she take you for granted? Was she too cold, too distracted, too dismissive? Insecurity is powerful because it forces self-reflection. She begins to realize that your attention was not guaranteed, that your effort had value, and that losing it might mean losing something rare. Insecurity also exposes the fragility of her control. For the first time, she must consider that perhaps you are not the one in need, you are the one with options. From insecurity grows the fear of loss. And fear of loss is one of the strongest human motivators. A woman can receive attention from dozens of men every week, but none of that matters compared to the man who decides, on his own terms, to step away. When you withdraw, you create scarcity. and scarcity always increases value. This fear of losing you is not always expressed in words. Sometimes it shows in her sudden silence, which is less about indifference and more about testing whether you will break first. Sometimes it appears in small gestures, like a casual text out of the blue. "How have you been?" Or "We haven't talked in a while." On the surface, these words look harmless, but beneath them lies the deeper question: do I still matter to him? Other times, fear of loss takes a louder form. She might post pictures designed to provoke jealousy, share quotes about moving on, or hint at other men in her life. These are not signs of strength, they are attempts to pull you back into her orbit. If you react, she knows she still has control. If you remain calm, she realizes the balance has shifted. And then there is the most revealing reaction of all: effort. When a woman senses she is losing something valuable, she often begins to try harder. She may text more often, call to check in, suggest meeting up, or even adjust her behavior to regain your attention. She might dress differently, act more affectionate, or go out of her way to show appreciation she once withheld. The mistake many men make is interpreting these reactions as proof of victory. They think, "She's chasing now, so I've won." But this is where the danger lies. If you respond to her renewed attention by falling back into old habits, texting constantly, over-explaining, giving more than you receive, you reset the very cycle that drained you in the first place. Her emotions may have shifted, but unless your behavior remains disciplined, the balance will tip back and respect will evaporate again. This is why Stoic philosophy is so valuable. The Stoics taught that we cannot control the feelings or actions of others, only our own. Epictetus said it best: "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Her confusion, curiosity, insecurity, and fear of loss are not your responsibility. They are reflections of the dynamic you created by valuing yourself. Your task is not to manage her emotions or rescue her from discomfort. Your task is to remain steady, grounded, and focused on your own path. And here is the deeper truth: her emotional reactions are not a measure of your worth. They are a measure of the shift you created. The moment you stop chasing, she is forced to reevaluate her assumptions, her behavior, and her place in your life. Whether she admits it or not, she feels the weight of your absence. But the true power is not in making her react. The true power is in your ability to hold your ground, to resist the urge to chase again, and to let her emotions play out while you remain composed. When you can do this, something profound happens. She begins to see you not as another man desperate for validation, but as a man who respects himself too much to be controlled by someone else's whims. And that realization changes everything. Her emotions may be unpredictable, but your steadiness becomes undeniable. And in the end, that steadiness is what earns respect, not just from her, but from yourself. If there is one quality that separates men who are respected from men who are forgotten, it is composure. In a world where emotions run high, where instant reactions are expected, and where strength is often mistaken for weakness, the ability to stay calm under pressure has become rare. And because it is rare, it is powerful. When you stop chasing a woman, when you finally reclaim your time and energy, she will almost always test you. Sometimes the tests are obvious: a cutting remark, a deliberate delay in replying, a mention of another man to spark jealousy. Other times, they are subtle silence, distance, or mood swings that seem to appear from nowhere. Most men fail these tests, not because they are weak, but because they never learned that composure is strength. They let their emotions dictate their actions, and in doing so, they lose the respect they so desperately want. To stay composed is to refuse to let her behavior control your state of mind. Imagine this: she suddenly pulls back, stops texting, and leaves you hanging. The average man panics. He sends multiple messages, wonders what he did wrong, and overthinks every detail. In doing so, he communicates one thing: my emotions depend on you. But a composed man reacts differently. He notices the change, but he does not lose his balance. He uses that time to focus on his own goals, his work, his health, his purpose. When she eventually reaches out again, curious about why he did not react, his calm response is simple: "I've been busy." That calmness speaks volumes. It says, I'm not controlled by you. I am in control of myself. This ability to remain steady is magnetic. Women may test you with silence or drama, but what they're really searching for is stability. They want to know if you can remain strong when emotions run high. They respect the man who does not crumble, the man who does not beg, the man who does not let insecurity take the wheel. When you remain composed, you become that anchor. You show her that while storms may rage, you remain the mountain unmoved, unshaken, unbreakable. Stoic philosophy is built on this very idea. Marcus Aurelius wrote daily reminders to himself to remain calm in the face of insults, challenges, and uncertainty. Epictetus taught that it is not events themselves, but our interpretation of them that disturb us. These men understood that control over one's emotions is the highest form of strength. In relationships, this truth is magnified. You cannot control her moods, her silence, or her attempts to provoke you, but you can control your reaction, and in that reaction lies your power. Consider the difference in perception. A man who reacts emotionally to every test appears insecure, volatile, and dependent. He sends the message that his worth depends on her approval. But a man who remains composed communicates the opposite: that his worth comes from within, that he respects himself regardless of what she does. Which man do you think earns her respect? Which man do you think she remembers when the interaction is over? The answer is clear. Respect gravitates to the composed. Remaining composed does not mean being cold or indifferent. It does not mean ignoring her or refusing to engage. It means responding with calm clarity instead of emotional chaos. It means you choose your words carefully. You maintain your posture, and you never let anger or desperation guide your actions. If she accuses you unfairly, you listen without defensiveness. If she tries to spark jealousy, you smile without taking the bait. If she withdraws, you do not chase, you continue living your life. This is not a tactic. It is a way of being. And here is where many men misunderstand composure. They think it is about controlling her or about winning a game. It is not. It is about controlling yourself. It is about proving to yourself, over and over, that you are the kind of man who does not break under pressure. That kind of confidence cannot be faked. It comes from practice, from discipline, from choosing every day to remain steady no matter what chaos swirls around you. The rewards of composure go beyond relationships. The man who can stay composed in the face of a woman's tests is also the man who can stay composed in business negotiations, in family conflicts, in moments of crisis. Composure is not just attractive, it is leadership. It is the quality that makes people trust you, follow you, and respect you. It signals maturity, discipline, and strength in a world where most people are slaves to impulse. So when she tests you, and she will remember this, her tests are not about cruelty, but about curiosity. She wants to know if you are truly the man you claim to be. She wants to see if your calmness is real or just a mask. Every time you pass that test by staying composed, you reinforce not only her respect, but your own self-respect. You prove to yourself that you are no longer the man who panics, chases, or breaks. You are the man who leads. In the end, composure is what separates boys from men, the needy from the respected, the forgotten from the unforgettable. When you master composure, you master yourself. And when you master yourself, no one, not even the woman who once held all your attention, can take that power away from you. The most dangerous moment for a man is not when she is pulling away, but when she starts coming back. This is the stage where the dynamic flips. For weeks or months, you may have been the one pouring in effort, and now suddenly she is the one initiating contact, texting first, suggesting plans, or showing more affection than before. For many men, this feels like victory. They believe they've won her back, that the relationship is now balanced, that their persistence has finally paid off. But here's where most men fall back into the very trap they just escaped. They confuse her renewed effort with genuine change. They confuse her fear of loss with true respect. And in doing so, they hand back the power they worked so hard to reclaim. The truth is that not all attention is created equal. Just because she is chasing you now does not mean she has transformed her perspective. It might only mean that she feels the sting of your absence. It might only mean that her pride is hurt, or her ego bruised. Some women return not because they truly value you, but because they cannot stand the idea of losing the comfort of your attention. And if you mistake that fear for respect, you will quickly find yourself back in the old cycle, giving too much, receiving too little, and being taken for granted once again. Handling the shift requires discipline. This is the point where you must slow down, not speed up. You must evaluate, not celebrate. When she comes back with renewed interest, you need to step back and ask yourself hard questions. Has her behavior genuinely changed? Or is she simply reacting to the silence? Is she putting in consistent effort over time? Or is this just a short-term scramble to regain control? Does she actually see your worth? Or is she simply afraid of losing the easy validation you once gave freely? These questions are uncomfortable, but they are necessary. Without them, you will drift right back into the imbalance that drained you before. This is where Stoic philosophy offers clarity. Seneca wrote that decisions made in the heat of emotion are almost always regretted. In this stage, you may feel a rush of pride, relief, or excitement when she begins to chase. But if you let those emotions dictate your response, you risk losing everything you've gained. The Stoic approach is to pause, to observe, and to respond with reason instead of impulse. Just because she is putting in effort does not mean she automatically deserves a place in your life again. Respect must be mutual, and if it isn't, then her return is meaningless. If you decide she is worth another chance, you must rebuild the dynamic with new rules. The relationship cannot go back to what it was before. You cannot be the man who chases endlessly, while she gives little in return. This time, she must understand that your attention is earned, not free. Your standards must remain high, your boundaries firm, your self-respect untouchable. If she begins to slip back into old patterns, taking your presence for granted, offering little effort, or testing your patience with drama, you must be ready to walk away again without hesitation. Because the moment you compromise your standards to keep her, you lose the very respect that brought her back in the first place. And if you decide she is not worth it, then you let her go with calm and dignity. You do not lash out. You do not seek revenge. You do not beg her to understand. You simply release her with the quiet confidence of a man who knows his value. Walking away from someone who cannot meet your standards is not weakness, it is strength. It is proof that you no longer define yourself by who accepts you, but by what you accept for yourself. The beauty of the shift is that, for the first time, the power is in your hands. You are no longer reacting to her. She is reacting to you, and that gives you the freedom to choose. You can choose to rebuild on stronger terms, or you can choose to walk away entirely. Either way, the decision belongs to you. That is the essence of leadership, not waiting to see how others act, but deciding how you will act regardless. Handling the shift is ultimately a test of your growth. Many men crumble here because they are so hungry for validation that they rush back into the cycle they fought so hard to escape. But the man who has learned composure, who has practiced self-respect, who has embraced the Stoic truth that freedom comes from within, he does not crumble. He evaluates, he decides, and he leads. So remember, her chasing you is not the victory. The true victory is in how you handle it. If you let her back in, it must be on your terms, with your standards intact. If you walk away, it must be with your head held high, not out of anger, but out of clarity. Because the man who handles the shift with discipline and wisdom is the man who commands respect not just from her, but from himself. At the center of everything we have talked about, pulling back, staying composed, handling her reactions, lies the principle that makes it all possible: focused detachment. Without this, you will always risk falling back into the old cycles of chasing, pleading, and proving yourself. But with it, you step into a state of strength that no one can take from you. Detachment is often misunderstood. Many men hear the word and think it means becoming cold, uncaring, or shutting yourself off emotionally. They imagine a man who isolates himself, who refuses to love, who hides behind a wall. But that is not detachment, that is fear. Real detachment is not about running from connection. It is about refusing to let connection control you. Focused detachment means you remain engaged with life, with relationships, with opportunities, but you are never enslaved by them. You care deeply, but you do not cling. You give freely, but you never lose yourself in the giving. You remain open, but you are always ready to walk away if your dignity is at stake. It is the ability to stand in a relationship and say, I choose to be here, not because I need you to complete me, but because I value myself enough to only stay where I am respected. That kind of strength is rare, but it is magnetic. Think about how most men live. They measure their worth by how much approval they receive, especially from women. They bend their entire schedules, their goals, even their identity around the hope of keeping someone happy. And every time they do this, they send the message that their own value is negotiable. But the man who practices focused detachment communicates the opposite. He shows, through his actions, that his self-respect is not for sale, that his life is full whether or not she chooses to be part of it. And ironically, that is exactly the kind of man women are drawn to, because women, like all people, respect what cannot be easily controlled. Focused detachment changes the way you invest your energy. Instead of pouring every ounce of it outward into chasing someone who does not reciprocate, you redirect it inward. You build your body. You strengthen your career. You sharpen your mind. You deepen your friendships and create a life so full that no single relationship can define you. The paradox is striking. The moment you stop obsessing over her attention, you become more attractive. Not because you are playing games, but because you are living as a man with purpose. And purpose is magnetic. The Stoics lived this truth centuries ago. Epictetus taught that freedom begins the moment you stop depending on what lies outside your control. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that a man who is ruled by his desires becomes a slave, but a man who rules himself becomes free. Focused detachment is this philosophy applied to modern relationships. You cannot control her moods, her choices, or her attention, but you can control your standards, your composure, and your focus. And in mastering those, you master your life. Detachment also protects you from the toxic cycles that drain so many men. How many times have you seen a man abandon his goals the moment a woman shows interest? How often do men disappear from their friends, neglect their health, or compromise their values just to keep someone around? They think they are securing love, but what they are really doing is teaching her that their life has no structure beyond her presence. Focused detachment is the cure. It tells her, without words, that you already have a direction. She can walk with you, but she will never replace your path. And here is the deeper gift of detachment: peace. When you stop needing her validation, You stop living in anxiety. You no longer check your phone every minute, wondering if she will reply. You no longer panic when she withdraws or tries to test you. You no longer measure your days by her moods. Instead, you live from a place of calm strength. You respect yourself. You invest in yourself. And you welcome connection as a choice, not a necessity. That peace is more attractive than any line, any gift, any effort you could pour into chasing. Because peace is rare, and people are drawn to what is rare. This doesn't mean you become indifferent to love. On the contrary, it means you love more purely. You give not from desperation, but from abundance. You are no longer trying to buy her affection with effort. You are sharing your life with her because your life is already worth sharing. That is the difference between a man who chases and a man who leads. The chaser hopes a relationship will give him purpose. The leader knows his purpose and invites a woman to share in it. So what does focused detachment look like in practice? It looks like hitting the gym instead of hitting send on another desperate text. It looks like pursuing your career instead of pursuing her attention. It looks like spending time with friends who uplift you instead of sitting alone waiting for her to notice you. It looks like having the courage to walk away from any situation that disrespects you, without anger, without drama, simply with clarity. And the more you live this way, the stronger you become, not just in relationships, but in every area of life. In the end, focused detachment is not about her at all. It is about you. It is about becoming the kind of man who respects himself so deeply that no one can shake his foundation. It is about living with purpose so strong that love becomes a choice, not a crutch. It is about stepping into your freedom, your peace and your strength. And when she realizes that you no longer chase, when she sees that you have mastered the art of detachment, she will feel something she cannot ignore: respect. And respect is the foundation of everything real. Now that we've walked through this entire journey, let's bring it all together. When you stop chasing, when you pull back and reclaim your time, your energy, and your focus, something remarkable happens. The balance of the relationship changes. She feels your absence, and that absence weighs more heavily than your presence ever did. Her emotions shift from confusion to curiosity, to insecurity, to the fear of losing you. But the real transformation isn't in her. It's in you. You learn composure. You stop being the man who reacts to every test, every silence, every provocation. You become steady, calm, grounded. You are no longer tossed around by her moods or your own anxieties. Instead, you stand like a mountain unshaken, unmovable, a source of stability in a world of chaos. And in that steadiness, you rediscover something priceless: your self-respect. Then comes the moment when the dynamic flips. She begins to chase, to make more effort, to question what she once took for granted. And while most men fall into the trap of celebrating too quickly, you understand this is the test of your growth. You don't rush back into old habits. You pause, you evaluate. You decide whether her new effort is real or temporary, whether she truly values you or simply fears losing comfort. And in that pause, you discover something greater than her attention. You discover your power to choose. Finally, you embrace the principle that underlies it all: focused detachment. You realize that love, respect, and connection are valuable, but they are not the foundation of your worth. Your worth begins and ends with you. You care, but you don't cling. You give, but you don't lose yourself. You remain open, but you are never afraid to walk away. This is the highest form of freedom. This is the confidence that cannot be faked. This is the calm that women admire, men respect, and you yourself will come to rely on every single day. So what does this mean for you right now? It means you no longer need to live as the man who chases. You no longer need to exhaust yourself proving your value to someone else. You no longer need to surrender your dignity just to keep her attention. Instead, you live as the man who leads, the man who respects himself so deeply that others cannot help but respect him too, the man who builds his body, sharpens his mind, pursues his goals, and invites others into his life without ever depending on them for a purpose. Ask yourself, how much of your life have you spent giving endlessly, hoping she would finally notice? How many nights have you wasted refreshing your phone, waiting for a message that never came? How many times have you sacrificed your peace just to secure her presence? And what would change if, starting today, you stopped chasing and started leading? What would change if you finally chose yourself? This is not about bitterness. It's not about games. It's about reclaiming what should have always been yours: your respect, your focus, your freedom. And once you do, everything changes. Women respond differently. Men treat you differently. But most importantly, you see yourself differently. You no longer see the man who begged for attention. You see the man who commands it without trying. Here at StoicCraft, we believe that the wisdom of the Stoics is not just philosophy, it's a blueprint for living. They taught that the only true power you have is over yourself, and that by mastering your own thoughts, your own reactions, your own standards, you gain freedom no one can take away. That's the life we invite you to build. If this message resonated with you, take action now. Hit the like button so more men can find this wisdom. Subscribe to StoicCraft for more lessons on building strength, clarity, and peace in a noisy world. And in the comments, type the words, "I choose self-respect." Don't just write it as a phrase, write it as a declaration. A reminder that from this day forward, you will not live as the man who chases, but as the man who leads. Because when she realizes you're no longer interested, the truth is revealed. The game changes, the balance flips, and the respect you once gave away to freely finally comes back to you. Not because you demanded it, but because you became the kind of man who never needs to.